Hello everybody, my name is Intisar Wardia, and today I'm going to teach you how to travel to 3 different countries within a 3 to 4 day period. I know that might sound crazy, but I've done it before and I've had the time of my life. It's basically like having a free trip when you're already going to somewhere else, and I'm going to give you a few examples while I give you the tips and how to do this with the cheapest way possible. So basically, I would do this while I was a student. I'm still a student actually today, and I would do this whenever I would go back and forth from Europe to America. And basically, I would be saving myself some money by doing these type of trips because I'd be going somewhere else that I'd want to go while I was on my way back and forth. So the first part of my advice is to go to a major city. I lived on the western side of Poland. It's called Wrocław, and the nearest largest city is Berlin, just across the German border. So how I did this was I would take a Flixbus, pay about 10 euros, $10 about, and I would go to Berlin, and Flixbus would go straight to the airport. So the buses go straight to the airport, but sometimes I would want to go into Berlin itself and see around, look around Berlin. I would recommend make sure getting dropped off by a metro line that goes straight to the airport, and just in case I would get lost, it's a good way to spend your free day in Berlin. So you'll notice that when I'm giving my examples that these trips started from Berlin. Reason why, like I said before, Berlin is the biggest city to Wrocław. And when you also notice is that major cities equals cheaper flights. According to my itinerary, for the first time I've done this, I left Berlin around 5:35 p.m. and my flight was to London, England. This is where I got this bright idea to go out and see London because I've never seen London before, and it was always a dream of mine ever since I was a child. A guy I dated, he gave me this idea. I remember him telling me that whenever there was a long layover, he would like to go out and see the city. And that popped into my head when I was in London, and I started Googling places to see in London. And basically, I used Google Maps to create a walking map. And I saved a screenshot on my phone just in case if I had no signal, I would not get lost. And ended up going out and seeing London in the middle of the night. I literally left around midnight. So when I left to go outside to London, I was on my way to Metro. I had such an adrenaline rush. I was so excited. I ended up getting a travel buddy. I asked this guy if how to get to the Metro, and he said he was just following the signs, and he wasn't from London either. And he was actually headed to the other airport in London as he had to go to Miami. He heard about what I was doing. I told him what I was doing, and he was also like, you know what, my flight isn't until the morning either. I'll join you. And we went into London, and it was really exciting. I'll never forget this day. It was really fun. To be honest, I was also a little worried when I left London. I was really strict about the time. We did almost get lost, kind of lost in London. We didn't know how to pay for the buses, and that was our mistake. We went a little bit too far. We ended up getting lost. And also the metro was closed, so that's also how we ended up getting lost. So be more prepared than how I was for that trip. That's what I learned from that trip. Be more prepared, make sure you know how to get around the city. So after London, I took my flight the next morning around 7 a.m. to Chicago and took the Greyhound bus to Detroit, Michigan, where my family resides. From this example, you can see that I used major cities, that I also used buses to get around for cheap. In total, I paid for this, for just for the flight, about $300 from Berlin to Chicago with a layover in London. but with the bus tickets, it was about, yeah, $350. So when I bought the tickets, I bought it as a round trip that left from Chicago to Berlin with a stop in Toronto, and that flight was another $300. So in total, I paid $600 for a round trip from Europe to America and back. So according to my flight itinerary, I left Chicago at 8 a.m. and after a 2-hour flight, I wouldn't be leaving Toronto for Berlin until um 11 p.m. at night. Originally, when I went to Toronto, my sister, who lives in Buffalo, New York, was supposed to come pick me up, and we were supposed to go to the aquarium, Wrigley's Aquarium in downtown Toronto. However, she was unable to, and it was a little chaotic in the end. I didn't want to spend the whole time in the airport, and I didn't want to spend so much money on the train from the airport to Union Station in downtown Toronto. So I managed to find a bus called the Go Bus in Toronto and was able to get a ticket for the day for $15. Although the ticket was so cheap, it took me at least 2 hours to get to downtown Toronto. The contrast to the 30-minute train ride from the airport to downtown. As you see from the examples, typical layovers from Eastern USA to Europe are Boston, New York, Reykjavik, Lisbon, Paris. These can be great layover trips. So another time I've done this was from Berlin to Iceland to New York. Now, this was the first time I've had someone actually join me for this type of trip, and my friend, he was really, really tired by the end of the trip. We left for Berlin around later in the day. I don't have the itinerary, so I cannot specify the time. However, we got to Iceland, it was almost night, and we ended up sleeping in the airport to save some money. Originally, I wanted to go biking in the morning and go to this river, this hot spring in Iceland that was about a 40-minute bike ride. My friend, he didn't want to go, so instead we went to see Reykjavik. So the bus ride from the airport to downtown Reykjavik was $50, and that's when I actually realized that Iceland is so expensive, which I recommend make sure you have money to burn if you are in Iceland and want to venture out. So we were in Iceland approximately 21 hours, and after we slept in the airport, we took a bus to Reykjavik, and even though it was almost July, it was June 28th, 2018, it was 40 degrees Fahrenheit. It was really cold. We needed our coats. However, when we arrived in New York, it turns out it was 90 degrees in New York, and it really hit us, that heat. It was really hot that day. So my classmate and I were lucky. His sisters came from Connecticut, where he's originally from, and they picked us up from Newark Airport and drove us back to Connecticut. If you're gonna fly to New York City, I recommend you take JFK. Even though JFK would be more expensive, you'd be saving yourself a big headache. So from there, we took his car from Connecticut and drove to New York City and spent the day there. And at the end of the day, around 3 a.m., I took my bus, Greyhound bus, from New York City to Detroit, Michigan. And in total, this was about a 4-5-day trip. From this example, this is when I learned, make sure there is public transportation to the city you would like to go to from the airport. Thank God for his sisters, because if his sisters didn't pick us up, we would have been stuck in Newark Airport and had to pay a taxi, which would have easily costed us $100. The last time I've done this, my layover was in Lisbon, Portugal. Again, all these tickets I bought for $300 round trip, at least one way. So it was like a free trip. I remember Portugal was a little more expensive than 300, it's about 350. But compared to the other flight, the cheaper flights, I would have gone to 2 more places if I chose the cheaper flight, but it would have been more of a hassle with the bags. So when I went to Lisbon, this is when I decided to get a hostel, a proper hostel. make sure I had somewhere comfortable to sleep, take a shower instead of like how I did for Iceland. And the hostel costed only 10 euros. And again, I made a map. I had places planned to go that evening in Lisbon, and also in the morning, I found a nice cafe, which I only spent 5 euros for breakfast. I'll put the places that I went to down below in the description with the links. So now that I gave you guys my examples, here is a little bit of warning. Only do this if you have a lot of energy, you're willing to do this, and it really comes down to how much you're willing to, how much you want to save money and how much you want to travel. Sometimes you have to pay a bit more for these flights at the moment, but remind yourself it's basically like a free trip and you're saving money in the end than buying separate flights to go to that city and back in the future. So guys, if you liked hearing my examples, please give this video a thumbs up and comment down below if you have any questions. I'll make another video about how to find these type of flights. So please subscribe for more and see you next time.